Welcome, everyone. Good boy, Tucker. This is learning at its most fun.
All right, that number stopped climbing, so we're going to kick things off. Good morning to some, good afternoon to others. My name is Austin Johnson, trainer and subject matter expert here at Redtail Technology. And today you're joining us for a practice management takeover. This is your first time joining us for a practice management takeover. These webinars is when we invite in industry experts and consultants to show you strategies on how to get the most out of your Redtail CRM subscription. So today we have virtually uniting using workflows for a cohesive client experience. And so we're going to take a deep dive into workflows. Our friend Cmejla is here, and he's going to share some strategies that he uses personally for his advisory business and how he's used workflows to scale his practice. And so, Adam, welcome.
Thank you very much, Austin. I appreciate it. Looking forward to being here and sharing in this conversation. We do want this to be a conversation and a dialogue more than a monologue, specifically as we get to the end of the presentation. There is Q&A, a couple of housekeeping items. Austin, I guess if you're okay with that, Q&A chat, you can put questions in the Q&A. That's ideal. That way, that if you start chatting, and we've all been on Zoom webinars before where there's like two different conversations that are happening. There's the actual one where the presenter is talking, and then there's this other conversation that happens in the chat area. So I will do my best to rapidly refocus. There is no such thing as multitasking. There is just simply the ability to rapidly refocus between different areas. So I will do my best. Austin, if I can ask for your help to kind of moderate chat as well. But for those of you on the call, if you do have a specific question, as I'm going through things, please put that in the chat, in the Q&A section of this webinar. That way we can certainly segment that out, and I'll get to those towards the end. My intention in this conversation is to do more of a show, not tell approach of how we have used workflows in our office to systematically create a specialized client experience where we're scaling up, but yet not watering down the experience that we're providing to the relationships that we serve. COVID has certainly amplified the necessity for firms to pivot in the way in which they deliver that client experience, where firms might have been, now it's almost, dare I say, we can say old school to meet in person or have that be the traditional way in meeting. Now we're based on the north side of Indianapolis, and we have local clients that will still prefer, or I should say have shifted to a virtual type experience and wanting to collaborate with our firm in a virtual experience. Compounded on top of that, not only are our clients more open to engaging with their advisor in a virtual two-dimensional manner, but teams are growing without geographic borders as well. I'm here in Indianapolis. My office manager is also predominantly located here, though candidly for 2023, one of her big missions and one of her big goals was to spend a little bit of time traveling. So we built our system where she's going to spend a month in Florida in February. Our lead advisor that works with our firm and is predominantly involved in serving all of our clients nationwide, he is located in College Station, Texas. And utilizing Redtail, utilizing the CRM as our centralized ops system and hub of everything is what has allowed us as a team to not only serve clients geographically agnostically, but also allow me as firm owner and as strategic visionary for the firm to be able to recruit and retain talent that doesn't necessarily have to be within the confines of a 30-minute or less commute to our office. So those are the two filters in which we've really leveraged workflows. And candidly, we were doing that before COVID. We've been building workflows in Redtail basically since we started adopting the CRM the better part of, I think, 12 years ago. And what I want to do today is share with you through a journey of from the moment that someone becomes a prospective client with your firm or with our firm, through the prospect process, the onboarding process, and then the review process in a systematic manner, how we utilize workflows to independently collaborate. And at the end of the day, give you as firms a kind of peek behind the curtain of how we think and how we answer the most important question that every firm should be able to answer with confidence. Who's responsible for doing what? When does it need to get done? And for which client? So if I were to ask all of you, how do you answer that question right now? And do you have the ability in a few clicks of a mouse to seamlessly pull up that task report to show not only from a client service perspective where things are at, to make sure that we as firm owners and as ops people, support position, whatever role that you're playing in the firm that you that whatever role that you play in the firm that you work in or for or own, whatever that role is, how do you answer that question so that you're honoring the commitment to the client that has aligned with your firm? And if you are in a managerial role or an ops role where some of your responsibility is making sure that you're measuring capacity in your firm, how do you determine when someone is at capacity? How do you determine when they're overworked, overloaded with tasks? Maybe there's underwork and they're under capacity, and you can figure out how to share the responsibilities and shift things from people's different to-do items or from people's different to-do lists. How do you answer that question? And that's where we have centralized all of that predominantly in the workflow engine within Redtail. And I'll share a little bit about how we use activities as kind of a satellite function when it comes down to client service. But again, predominantly that's how we've used workflow. So what I want to do is share with you some of the templates, some of the most important templates that we use in that relationship management process. And then through that filter, understand that again, you can build a workflow for almost anything. We have a phrase in our firm: if it is a process, it's a workflow. If it's a project, it is typically an activity from a client standpoint. But you should build a process for everything that is involved in your firm so that you can systematize the specialized client experience. A lot of firms think that, oh, what I do is different and I couldn't dare standardize a process. I couldn't dare take away that custom personal one-on-one feeling that I give to clients. And what I would challenge you in that thinking is that inadvertently what's happening is that by virtue of you wanting to give true one-on-one non-standardized processes or experiences to those clients, the consequence to that decision is that it is essentially doing a couple of things. Two key ones come to mind. Number one, you're always at risk of forgetting something. You're always at risk of, oh, I forgot to do that. Or, oh, how many of us have had that? You wake up in the middle of the night with did I forget did that money go out? Did we make that? Yeah. How many of us have had those types of conversations? So that's the first risk that you're doing. And the second risk is you're just inefficient with your time because you're always having to think about what you're doing. Willpower is not enough. Willpower is a finite resource. The calories that your brain burns accounts for about 20% of your daily caloric intake, or your daily caloric spend, I should say. And so the less candidly that I have to think about who's doing what, when it needs to get done, and for which client, I'll probably say that about a half a dozen times. I don't know if there's an over-under, if we can do betting in this. I'm not a bettor, but if anybody's a gambler, I'll set the over-under at 5.5. But it's one of our pivotal phrases because it's what drives how we document things. And it's the phrase that we have in our firm: if it's not documented, it did not happen. So everything needs to go into the CRM. So with that, Austin, did I miss anything? Anything that we need to cover before I share screen? Just dive right in.
I'm excited, Adam. One other thing I just wanted to mention: if you miss any of the action today, or you want to share today's content with a colleague, we're going to be recording and posting this to both the Redtail Help Desk as well as the Redtail YouTube channel. So feel free to check out either of those two places next week, and we'll go ahead and post the recording there. But other than that, Adam, take it away.
Perfect. Sounds good. So I've been an advisor for about 15 years. And before that, I was a quality assurance engineer in a pharmaceutical firm. Baxter Pharmaceuticals is where I worked. And my job was in part to review paperwork and check for errors, literally making sure that I's were dotted, T's were crossed. And if there was an error, it was a matter of, the phrase that we had was, let's cure the disease and not mask the symptom. So we do a root cause analysis to figure out what was the error in the process that contributed to, or what was the break in the process that contributed to the error that found itself on the line. And then it was a matter of rewriting standard operating procedures to make sure that those didn't happen again. Well, when I became an advisor and made a career shift and started with a national broker dealer, with a national firm, and then the business has gone through multiple iterations since then. The thing that I realized is that there really wasn't a B to Y, right? A was go out and talk to people, and Z was keep them happy once they're a client. But there really wasn't that B to Y. There wasn't a standard operating procedure of how do you deliver a client experience? How do you onboard a client? How do you plan for a client? How do you prospect for clients? How do you systematize that? And so that was the filter and focus, if you will, of how I started to take what I was learning and institutionalize that into the CRM. And the byproduct of that we're experiencing now is the ability to add team members and use that as kind of the guardrails, if you will, around the business, and allow them to bring their specialized, what they get paid to do, which is to give advice, connect with clients, think, right? If we lump it all down, it's basically just that. You get paid to think. And then streamline and systematize all of the busy work that happens behind the scenes to ensure, again, that nothing falls through the cracks. So let me share with you, and again, I'll kind of narrate this a little bit in a hypothetical hypothetical point of view of what happens if we have a new prospective client that comes knocking on our door. Well, if figuratively or literally speaking, obviously much more figurative in this environment that we're in. The first thing that I'll say is actually, I'm not even going to start in Redtail. The first thing that I would encourage every firm to think about, and this again goes back to the digital experience and how you can begin to think about working with clients that aren't necessarily just in your geographic backyard, is what is that scheduling experience? How does someone even connect with your firm? How do you harvest information to begin having conversations with someone that is interested in your firm? One of the things that we do, and this is, dare I say, I believe in the work that I do coaching other advisors in a different coaching program that I'm involved with, is scheduling software like Acuity, Calendly, Schedule Once, Appointlet, Chili Pepper, all of these different scheduling tools, dare I say, are table stakes in today's world. We have clients that are in their 20s, we have clients that are in their 80s, and every single one of them, either directly or indirectly, ends up in our scheduling software. What I mean by that is directly meaning they have the scheduling link. Our scheduling link is embedded in every single email signature, so clients know they can go to that website, they can go to that scheduling page and book an appointment. It gives client that sense of control. Number two, it allows you as advisors to put guardrails around when you can see clients and time block your time more efficiently and appropriately. That's applicable for advisors as well as those in a support capacity, in a support role. But number three, it allows you to use technology in a way to get that information from the scheduling software into the CRM so that you can use that information to better equip yourself with the knowledge of your client. And so one of the ways that we do that here, my computer would think a little bit faster than I was trying to work, is we use Acuity as our scheduling software. And what we do is we have the ability to not only, one of the other benefits that I want to point out here briefly is don't underestimate the ability to use every single point of communication with the technology that you're using to communicate your value and the experience and the philosophy, the approach, the feeling that a client or a prospective client will have if they choose to align with you. And for us, that begins in the confirmation email that they get when someone books a triage call with us. Our firm, Integrated Planning and Wealth Management, exclusively works with optometric private practice owners around the country. That is our niche. We have not brought on a client that is not an optometrist, I don't know, the better part of 5 years, something like that, 4 years and change. And so because of that, we're able to tailor and customize that communication strategy and look at utilizing your scheduling software as a way to communicate that message. Now, I know some of you might be in a capacity where you're within broker dealers or other compliance. We are a standalone RIA. So you are talking to the CCO, you're talking to the COO, the CIO, right? The C-suite is here on your screen and you're talking to you right here. My point is, while you may not be able to use all of the bells and whistles that I'm going to talk about here, this is one of those where I'd rather you see it and know that it exists than to turn a blind eye to it and not share it with you at all. So if you can't do something like this, what I would implore you, or if you seemingly can't do this because of compliance, what I would encourage you to think of is don't dismiss thinking outside the box and, dare I say, hide behind compliance. I've worked with advisors, dozens and dozens and dozens of advisors in multiple different capacities under multiple different business organizations, structures, right? Insurance BDs, investment BDs, standalones, et cetera. There is a way to work around this. Maybe it's not directly in a scheduling software. Maybe it's with an email campaign through MailChimp or through ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit. Maybe you have to BCC yourself on all your emails. There are multiple different ways. And Redtail has some of that ability as well to capture the emails that you're sending to clients as a way to journal that information and harvest that data from a compliance standpoint into the client record. So please, what I would encourage you as you're looking at something like this, quote unquote, outside the box, don't dismiss it by saying, oh, compliance won't let me get through that. Ask the questions, and it's always no until you ask. So use that as a way to just think about how you can do this. So we have this type of communication. Again, this is where you could do one of two things by sending an email, by sending a confirmation email from your scheduling software. Your appointment on this date is confirmed with this person. Click on this Zoom link. Or you could use it as a way to communicate that message. How this ties into Redtail is we use Zapier as a way to build a Zap. When someone schedules that appointment, it automatically creates that contact in Redtail, and it will take their phone number, their email address, and a couple of other pieces of information if we want. We're candidly at this point in the process, we really only care about their phone and email address. So we built this Zap to automatically enter that prospect information into Redtail. What we've also done is built an automation inside of Redtail that will say whenever a new client is added via this process to go ahead and give them the status of prospect. And when someone has the status of prospect, you can build an automation that will automatically kick off a workflow. One of my favorite phrases from Tim Ferriss, those of you that aren't familiar with Tim Ferriss, he's the author of the 4-Hour Workweek, the 4-Hour Body, the 4-Hour Chef, leading quote unquote authority, if you will, at least in my world, he is in just ways in which to hack life and just get the most out of the hours that we have. In the 4-Hour Workweek, one of my favorite phrases that he said was, never delegate something that can be automated and never automate something that should be eliminated. And so those of you that are thinking about ways in, okay, every time a new prospect comes, who's manually entering that information? You may have delegated that, but could you automate something? And this is where utilizing a tool like Zapier, and Redtail has a number of integrations or a number of fields, if you will, that you can tie into a variety of different software platforms out there. We happen to use Acuity, pretty sure it works on Calendly, a couple of other scheduling softwares. And guess what? If you're curious, just start building. Just go into Zapier. It is a fairly intuitive process. You do not need to code. You do not need to know how to, you do not need to be what I would call tech savvy in order to understand how Zapier works. And if you even if you don't want to mess with it, this is very much, as Dan Sullivan says from Strategic Coach, this is a who, not how conversation. Find someone that does know technology. Spoiler alert, it's not me. I don't hold myself out to be a tech consultant for advisors, but call Redtail, ask them. Maybe that, I don't mean to speak for Redtail. Maybe they can help, maybe they can't. Austin, you were holding your finger up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we do have some resources on our help desk specific to our Zapier integration and how to build certain different apps using Zapier and connecting those with Redtail. So if you're interested in using the Zapier tool in connection with Redtail, head to the Redtail help desk and search for the term Zapier. And we have many articles about popular applications like Acuity scheduling on how to connect those with Redtail.
There it is. See, you don't even have to think about it. It's already done for you. If you can read and follow along the steps, they'll walk you through that process. So the point here, again, to kind of continue with this role play of, or this real play of a prospective client, the client goes ahead on our website, books a triage call. Zapier will automatically, because they booked a triage call in Acuity, that automatically will create a contact in Redtail utilizing Redtail automations. Again, I know Redtail has help desk information and articles on how to build automations, what the limitations are, et cetera. Think about ways in which, ask yourself, what the team is doing, and is there a way that we can automate something that has been delegated? Remember, never delegate something that can be automated, and never automate something that can be eliminated. So as you're thinking about that, coming back to here, we're using an automation to build. Now I'm going to manually add it here for two reasons. Number one, because this is our demo database, we don't have all of our full automations built into this database. The actual database that we use, we don't have a client named Albert Einstein, obviously. So I'm going to manually add it. And number two, if you're brand new, wet behind the ears to workflows, I want to share with you how you would actually add workflows once you have a template. For the sake of time and just in the context of what we're talking about here, I'm not going to go through the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s about how you build a workflow. Workflows are built of 3 components: a step, tasks, and outcomes. Outcomes are the big one. That's the conditional logic that says, if I do this, then go to this step. That's the extent I'm going to get into workflows. If you're, again, new to workflows, there are multiple help desk resources, including, I think, past webinars that I've given on how workflows work. But what I want to do is demonstrate how you would attach a workflow to that process. So remember what I said earlier, in that we want to scale a specialized experience. We want every prospect to experience the same thing every time, because we want to scale that experience and not have to worry about remembering every step along the way. So what we're going to do, again, in our working database, everything that I'm doing right now is fully automated by the automation that we built. This is a list of all the different workflows that we have in our database. We have organized them, and this is something that I would encourage you to do and think about. We have organized them by the type of workflow that it is. So these are the appointment workflows that we have. These are the client account service workflows that we have. And these are all the workflows that for advisors that are in that, shameless plug, that are in that, I don't want to build all these. I'd rather find someone that I can just plug and play templates and find the paint by numbers. This is what we provide to those advisors that invest in that platform and in that offering that we have with integrated consulting and advisory solutions. But these are all the workflows. It is a carbon copy of what we're using in our RIA on a daily basis. So if we go, click the wrong one. If we go all the way up to our discovery process, this is the workflow that we use in our firm. What I'm going to do, again, all of this would be automated. You'll notice that we use target dates. Again, for the sake of this call, I'm not going to give them the details on target dates, but I do want to point out a quick hack, if you will, on target dates. If you are utilizing workflows, a lot of what we've seen advisors do is they just have one target date applicable to the entire workflow. One of the things that we've been able to do is kind of build multiple different sequences of events inside of one workflow, right? So if we have, remember, target dates are kind of that anchor where anything that is due before or after that target date will happen in unison as you change that target date. And so you can have a couple of different processes inside one big process, and simply by toggling the target date, you can shift, and this will make a little bit more sense as I pull up the workflow here, but it will shift that target date from different chapters, if you will, of that workflow. So what we found to be beneficial, and again, I say this from the point of view, if you're scaling a firm or you're wanting to build systems in place so that you wouldn't have to be the one explaining every nuanced detail, this is where we have found what we have found to be beneficial is in the description, give people the information that they know of when target dates should be applied. So the first target date is the beginning of the workflow. The second target date is the date of the discovery call. In our world, the discovery call is the triage call. And then the third target date is the date of the one-page plan presentation, or in our process, we're meeting with clients throughout, we're meeting with prospective clients a couple of times, essentially ask for the check before we ask for the yes. This is our example. Again, I'm not saying that you have to do it this way, but I'm just sharing how we do it. And I'm also doing it because it demonstrates how we have different people in the firm that are responsible for doing different things throughout the process. So we're going to create the workflow. What Redtail is doing behind the scenes, the CRM is making a copy of that template that we have. We now go in here. I see that this is now that workflow, and now this is the entirety of the workflow. So remember, a workflow tells who's responsible for doing what, when it needs to get done, and for which client. There's 3 times I think I said it. So in this case, right, remember I said a workflow has 3 different components. Every workflow has to have a step. That's these right here. Every workflow has to have at least one task, which is right here. The other aspect that I would encourage you to think of, use tasks as your standard operating procedure. So enter contact information into Redtail. Great. What does that mean? Well, this is where you can use the information, or you can use what you want to have happen. Take what you know and what you want your firm to do and delegate that by virtue of documenting that in the task itself. That way, someone in your team that comes in here and sees enter contact info into Redtail, well, what does that mean? It's right here. All relevant information, make sure status is prospect. Again, in our firm, that triggers the automation. Be sure to change the phone number. Again, you can see all this information here. And then we have what the most important functional feature of workflows is the conditional logic called outcomes. And so now what we can see is we have a couple of different outcomes that drop down here where we either need to gather more additional information, it's all been completed, or we need to, this would be all completed, but we still need to schedule a discovery call. Or in this case, maybe the data is entered and the call has been scheduled, at which point we want to skip this step and go right down to the welcome call. So let's do that. Let's skip this and go right down into the welcome call. Here is one other big benefit, and it's a critical function of Redtail that we love from a compliance standpoint, because whenever you complete a step in a workflow, those notes become uneditable and time-stamped in the system. So if here's another quick shameless, not really shameless plug, I have no interest in it, whatever. One of our favorite tools is Text Expander. So we use Text Expander religiously in our firm. Text Expander is basically think of mail merge on steroids. So we have an entire library of snippets just for workflows. So case in point, if you want to see how text expanders work, I use this one a lot. I use ZND. So if I type ZND, Text Expander will automatically populate that I dictated notes on 11/1/2022. If I go in here and say CAIA, if I type that into here as well, CAIA, this is mail merge on steroids. It works on Mac, it works on PC, it's an overlay over the entire system. You can use it in Redtail, you can use it in Outlook. I mean, we have an entire mail merge template database here of all the different emails that we would send either to clients, to prospects, et cetera. So this is a way, again, I keep coming back to mail merge on steroids. Look up Text Expander. It's a way to institutionalize the communication that you have with prospects, with clients, whoever that might be, and save yourself typing. It is a huge return on investment. It's one of those 3 or 4 key pieces of software that we would pay 10x if they raise their price. If someone from Text Expander is on the call, please don't take me at my word. Please keep your prices where they are. I very much appreciate that. But here's what I would, notes dictated on the NFA. No further action is needed at this time. I complete the step. And then, okay, so real quick on Text Expander, Jennifer, your question, I'll come back to questions, but I saw this one and I want to address it while it's fresh. There is, at least on a Mac, I can go here and I can search Redtail. And so here I could go workflow. Here are all the different ways in which I can look them up. Yes, I probably have 20 of them memorized because we do use them all the time. I have RefGen, which is the template that I use to make referrals to generic, CPA meet client, client meet CPA. RefGen is one that I use, Podguest, Podbean, Podwarmguest. I have all these different snippets that I have memorized. It kind of follows that 80-20 rule. I memorize 20% of the snippets that I use 80% of the time. So at least I can't speak on a PC, but on a Mac, Text Expander has a nice overlay plugin that you can look that up there. So good question, Jennifer. But yeah, now Kathy, our office manager, I know that she has a lot of those snippets memorized as it pertains to Redtail activities, workflows, because that's the camp that she primarily plays in. Okay, so here's where I'll demonstrate first and foremost why. Now, again, I'll talk about it. It's not actually demonstrated because, again, this isn't the database that we use at our firm. But remember what I said in the beginning, the independent collaboration that happens with a virtual team. And this applies whether you're virtual or whether, we're down the hall, I've got offices up and down the hall here. The same thing applies. I don't want to be peeking my head out or sending the god awful inner office email, reply all email that just makes me want to put a pencil in my ear. We don't want to do all that. That is an incredibly inefficient use of time. Rather, I want the system to do the thinking for me. And so in our system, the way you build the workflow template, remember, who is responsible? In the template, you ask yourself the question when you're building the template, or if you're investing in an off-the-shelf solution like what we have, or I think there's a couple of other consultants out there that might have similar type products or similar type solutions. If you're investing in pre-built workflows, you're going to sit with your team and go through each process and say, okay, who on the team is responsible for doing this step? In this case, what we do, we recommend making a welcome call. Remember, in this case, in my example so far, the prospective client has had a completely digital interaction with our firm up until this point. They found us on the website, or they got a referral maybe from a friend, or they listened to our pod. I have a 4-year running podcast called 2020 Money. Again, it's explicitly for optometric private practice owners. However they found us, up until then, it's still been an asynchronous digital experience. So we want to humanize that relationship as quickly as possible. So what we've done is we've implemented a welcome call very early on into the relationship. Now, I'm not doing the welcome call. Yes, I know it says it here, but again, our demo database. This is automatically assigned to Kathy as our office manager. And so what happens is once the contact information has been entered, or if it's been entered by Acuity, Kathy just goes in and verifies that it's been entered correct, or that it's classified and that the target date is correct. When she does that, it will automatically pop up on her to-do list no later than 2 days, right? This is where the systematizing of workflows matters, because the system is doing the thinking for you. You don't have to worry about putting something on your calendar and saying, oh, I got to remember to do this in this day. Or even if you do remember to do that, you don't have to spend the time to create that appointment so that you don't forget, or assign it to someone else in your team so that they don't forget, because it automatically gets populated. Or maybe I want it to be 1 day before, and I want that to automatically update to happen by tomorrow. So what will happen, Kathy will log into her Redtail database tomorrow morning. She'll go to her today's overview. And then right here on workflow tasks due today, she's going to see that she needs to make a welcome call. And what she's going to do is, if I actually kind of role play, think of me as Kathy now, let me just kind of show you what that looks like here. If I say that's due 0 days after, that'll be 1/1. So now if I'm Kathy, pretend I'm Kathy and pretend it's tomorrow, right? And she logs into Redtail, she's going to see one of her items to do today is to make, she's going to see one of her items to do, there we go, is that she needs to make a welcome call. For who? Albert. When's it due? On the 1st. What process is associated? Oh, okay, we have a prospective client. I click into that. Now remember, I'm Kathy. I haven't been involved in this process up until this point at all. Adam, I've done this. So now it allows Kathy independently to be caught up to speed on what's happening here. She can go into step notes and see, okay, I did notes. Again, I did this as an example to demonstrate text expander. What you would typically put in here as an advisor, right? Think of the notes that you put in a workflow step. What do I want to communicate to someone else that is involved in this workflow so that I don't have to be involved in this again? How do I get that information? What do I know about this situation right now that I want to get out of here, get into there, so that I don't have to worry about it again? I don't want that inter-office email. I don't want that Slack message. I don't want the proverbial, hey, what are we doing with John Smith's distributor? Like, we don't want any of that. Success for me, ironically enough, is only hearing from my team 2, maybe 3 times per week. Our level 10 meeting that we have, we're big fans of Gino Wickman and Traction. So we've implemented level 10 meetings. We call it our 3M meeting, Monday morning meeting at 10 a.m. I have a daily check-in or a weekly check-in now with John, my lead advisor, on Wednesday afternoon at 12:30, or excuse me, at 12 o'clock Eastern time. And then Kathy and I have a weekly check-in as well. In an ideal situation, that's the only time I will interact with my team, because everything else has been documented and systematized in the CRM. We're communicating, I'm getting information asynchronously to them, but it shows up in their world on an as needed when action is needed basis. So when Kathy, coming back to my role play here, Kathy logs in tomorrow, goes in here and sees this, there would be information in here. Albert was a referral from John Smith. John and Al play golf together, and he's in, and whatever that might be, right? In our intake form, not to kind of go back too much here, but one thing that you can also do, if I go back to, if you want to start thinking about ways in which you can start triaging and gathering information from clients, or excuse me, from prospective clients, look at ways in which you can utilize forms or utilize your scheduling software to gather some of that information. So, for example, if we look at my triage meeting detail, one of the things that we ask is, what is the biggest financial concern or challenge that you're facing right now that you're looking to have solved? I want to find that information out, and I want Kathy to know that information so that when Kathy makes her outbound call, she can call Al and act like she knows everything about it here. Hey, Al, looking forward to your, thank you for scheduling. And we have all of this scripted out, by the way, as well. You can see right here, use new discovery call scheduled script, which we have saved in our templates folder. So all of this is scripted out. Candidly, I don't have the script memorized, not by script, but Kathy obviously does. So she would reach out, either leave a voicemail, which is scripted out, or have bullet points talking if she's talking to Al. Al, thanks so much for the call. Adam's really looking forward to talking with you. It looks like one of your top concerns is fill in what he put on his intake form. I understand that you and Tom golf together, whoever I said the guy's name was, right? Those would be from my notes. She can come to the conversation prepared and like she knows what is going on proactively rather than reactively trying to catch up to wherever Al is at that time. So once Kathy goes through this, she's going to complete the step. She's going to say, reached out, no contact made. In this case, let's say for some reason, we really want to schedule that, or we really want to make that call. We really want to make that welcome call. Okay. Usually what we'll do is it's this last outcome, either spoke with the prospect or left voicemail, LVM left voicemail. And from here now, it's going to be, this is typically, what we'll find in the workflow notes. Now we'll notice that this would go to me, right? I'm the one, now it's back in my court. So Kathy took it, I didn't have to think about it. Once Kathy's done with the welcome call, now the workflow punts it back into, now the workflow punts it back into my court where I'm the one that now is going to be doing the discovery call. What'll happen here is I will go through, I will have the conversation, which is typically a 20-minute conversation, where the purpose of this call is to ensure that they're a good fit. From this point, I will use Mobile Assistant to dictate notes. Again, a huge benefit of utilizing Mobile Assistant for dictation is that Austin's already nodding his head. He knows where I'm going with this. There's a really nice integration with Mobile Assistant. So when I dictate those notes automatically end up on today's overview. So Kathy will see as those Mobile Assistant messages get dictated, she will then go in here, either clean up the notes, attach them as a note to the contact record, cut and paste different action items into different workflows. Candidly, she would be a great person to talk about right now to kind of pass over to her, but she is currently on a flight to Hawaii on a much earned, well-deserved vacation. So my point with that is Kathy is doing that with my mobile assistant notes. What I'm doing here is, again, right now I go, if I'm working my to-do list, I see that I have a call. Now, obviously calls are going to be scheduled. So this is going to show up on my calendar, but the act of me doing something, remember, if it's not documented in the CRM, it did not happen. And so I'm going to click in here, I'm going to have the dictation, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete, have the call, and then once I've dictated my call, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And now what can happen, right? These are all the different outcomes that can happen. Maybe I had the conversation, he's like, yeah, I need to figure out how to get out of credit card debt. Could I help you? Maybe. Can't print money, not the Fed. So maybe you're not the best fit, right? For whatever reason, we can select an outcome. But if this is the case where they are a good fit, I dictated my notes. That way Kathy knows when I dictated, because while mobile assistant is great, note it's not like it's Otter AI or any other type of instant AI transcription. It does take some time for mobile assistant notes to be dictated, usually 24, sometimes 48 hours. But if Kathy sees this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the step. And what would happen now is Kathy, on or before this time, this is one of the things that I absolutely love about Redtail and how workflows are done, utilizing the target date, is it's not what I call a cascading due date effect. So when I say due on or before by, if Kathy gets this, and she has capacity, if she's all caught up on things to do today, what she can very quickly do, here's another little cheat that we absolutely love about Redtail, duplicate tabs. And so now I have this tab open, I have this tab, I can go into reports. And if I want to pull a workflow task report, let's say I'm Kathy now, or heck, it's not even really, if I just play me and I want to show me all the things that I'm responsible for doing. Utilizing this filter button, I can go and create all kinds of different parameters, different expanded search features to figure out what my tasks are. If I get caught up with things that were either past due up to today, and I want to start working ahead, I can go ahead and say, you know what? All right, this month, I guess we are in November right now. So let me go ahead and say, I think this will work if I do this. There we go. So, right, if I get ahead of schedule now, I can go ahead, notice how it's due on the 4th, but I don't have to wait till the 4th. If I have capacity to do it today, I can go ahead and do it. Another quick hack, if you're utilizing workflows a lot, one of the things that we like doing, if you start working from this screen and then you hit the back button, you will get the form submission error. And that's because you're doing I don't know the technical reason why it doesn't work. I'll just say that. So if you're working workflows from a task report, a little hack that we've done is work from here, open link in new window. Oh, not new window, new tab. I guess you can do new window as well. And that opens it up here. And now what I can do is I can actually work the workflow from this process. So this would be Kathy. Again, it's assigned to me because it's our demo database, but this would all be sent out via Kathy. She would be sending all of this information out. We go ahead and complete this information. I'm sure she probably has a text expander. I know there's probably one in here somewhere where she has a text expander for how this was all sent out. Right, we're putting those notes in here. The benefit of doing that, again, it's time-stamped, it's uneditable, and it will automatically advance the workflow to the next step, where in this case, we want to verify that we've received that discovery information. I do want to freeze here and kind of, if anything, if you're new to workflows or you're looking for a way to systematize workflows, if you're on a Mac, Command-Shift-4, do a screenshot of what we have here. I'm not sure what the screenshot function is in Windows. I couldn't tell you the last time that I've been on a PC. No offense to PC users or Windows users. And I'll pause here again. This is the process that we use to take someone from brand new, never interacted with our firm before, through either they said yes and we're going to begin working together, or they said no and we're going to move them from prospect to former prospect. So again, let me do this just because this will be in the recording. Let me expand all of these steps so that you can come back. And if you want to write this down, we are at the, let's call it 45-minute mark of the recording, 46-minute mark of the recording. And I'll expand all of these. So if you want to come back after the recording gets sent out and get literally every single step and task in our entire prospect process, go ahead and do so here. The only thing that I can't give you is all the outcomes, just because that would probably take an hour in and of itself to click into each step. But let me do that. And then I'll just kind of, again, just for the recording's sake here, this is how we do things. This is the benefit of utilizing workflows, because in our actual database, and again, I don't want to show that one because I don't want to inadvertently click into a client contact information, display their information or any of the workflow reports that we have, because again, there is contact information, there are clients in there. So we certainly don't want to put their information into this type of presentation. But the benefit of doing this is The benefit of doing something like this, as opposed to just in time new tasks, or what we've also seen firms do that maybe are resistant to this, is say, well, Adam, why do we do this? We just have one activity and we just change the due dates and who it's assigned to. The two things that I don't like about doing that is, number one, two big things that I don't like. Number one, whenever you edit details in an activity, they're not time-stamped. A slip of the mouse, a delete, you can modify the information that's in an activity. And maybe this is my old school FDA scared, what approach of documentation and the thoroughness of documentation that exists in the FDA space. When I was in pharmaceuticals, no way that would have flown. So maybe I've been forever tainted by that. So I don't like the fact that you can edit the details and, dare I say, fudge the data, either intentionally or unintentionally. The other part that I don't like about it is that it doesn't create the guardrails around your system. Advisors are notorious for making exceptions. Oh, well, this client is just this. Oh, this is reason. Then we just keep punting things out. A workflow, as you can see here, the dates are all predetermined. I don't have to think about when the next time that I'm going to follow up with this prospect. I don't need to think about when I'm going to have that discovery call. I don't need to think about when if Kathy's going to remember to do this, because the workflow does the thinking for me. And it puts guardrails around how many times we're going to follow up with that prospect, right? Follow up with prospect after we've sent that information. How many times? 1, 2, 3, final attempt. If we don't hear anything after the final attempt, what happens? Basically, one of two things happen. They either don't engage, they ghost us at all. They're not engaging, they tell us no, or they've completely ghosted us. Either way, we're out. We have a 3-strike rule and you're out. A phrase that we've adopted in our firm: we can't be more vested in their success than they are in their own. And so this mechanism right here, this work, well, it was recorded. You can get them all expanded. The workflow forces you to have in our world, a 3-strike policy. After that, they're out. And so those are the two biggest benefits of why we like workflows for this process, and for any process for that matter, as opposed to utilizing activities that we just reassign to either people and or due dates. This was what I wanted to explain. This one workflow is an example of the entire philosophical approach that we take to serving clients, whether it be a prospect process, or now we go ahead and we say, you know what, let's go ahead and add a workflow. Now we're in the planning meeting where we're having onboarding planning meetings. We have 4 different onboarding planning meetings that we have in our firm. Whether it's that, whether we are sending money out of a brokerage account, right? If I go here and say, where's our distribution from a brokerage account, right? All of these different workflows that we have. Oops, I forgot to do this, forgot to do category. If we do all of these, it follows the same philosophy. Who does what, when, and for which client? That's 4, right? The caveat, or I shouldn't say the caveat, where this becomes more advantageous and more beneficial is when you have clients involved in the process. When those if-then scenarios of like, oh, that's right, the client, like, how many times have we thought about, how many times have we thought about all the different steps in a process, and then the client throws us a curveball? As you think through those areas, as you think through those processes, workflows can help mitigate and kind of get you back on center when clients throw you a curveball. Internally, it's easier for processes, right? When we think about processing a Roth conversion, that's a much easier process to do internally, because assuming that you have at least week custody with TD Ameritrade, and assuming that you have Roth on demand capabilities where that's already on file, it's just a process of doing a couple of steps, but you still want to document those steps. That's where workflows allow your team. You don't have to worry about the inner office. You don't have to worry about the proverbial reply all email. You can have that independent collaboration. And it also opens you up to working with clients remotely as well, because you can still deliver that digital experience. Again, utilizing some extra pieces of technology, which would be a different conversation for a different day. But the point here is it should all still feed back to the hub of your business, which is your CRM. So hopefully, again, I know this is a little bit drinking from a fire hose. I did want to intentionally share this workflow because it is a pretty robust workflow with a lot of steps. But to illustrate again, all of your job when you create these workflows is to go through and say who in our firm is responsible for doing these tasks on this step. So let me, I know we've got about 8 minutes left here. Let me go up and take a look at questions here and hammer through some of these. Marcus asked, do you use other tech in relation to complement Redtail, Pulse 360 or Hubly? Short answer is no, we don't. Well, let me rephrase. I mean, yes, I've given you some examples of what we use. We've used Acuity. We don't use Hub or Hubly or Pulse 360. My mouse just stopped working. I don't know why. There we go. Oh, and then I decided to log into my WordPress website here. We don't use Hubly's a good user interface, and it's a good user experience. At its core, it still does the same thing. Who does what, when it needs to get done, and for which client. Candidly is a little bit more of a modern interface, than Redtail workflows. One could argue yes, but in our world, Redtail workflows aren't broke, so we're not going to fix them. You just have to ask what you're solving for. This is the biggest mistake that I think advisors make with technology is, ooh, shiny object, right? They get distracted with another piece of fairy dust or glitter or squirrel or whatever other metaphor you want to use. Ask yourself the question, what is this additional piece of technology solving for? And does the solve create more benefit than the extra work it's going to be than the extra work going to be required to implement that piece of technology? Does Redtail have any plans to upgrade the workflow diagram beyond a linear progression, somewhat like a decision tree? Austin, I'll pass that over to you. I don't know if you've had any words of wisdom or insight to share from the DevOps team.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. We did recently update the workflow template section to allow for people to input text a little bit faster and do it with less clicks. But I really like that idea. Adam, can you click on the question mark icon in the top right-hand corner for me, please?
Yep. Oop, there we go.
If you ever come across an idea for us, something that you'd like to see Redtail implemented, head to that suggest a feature box and go ahead and post your idea here or vote on some of the ideas that other users have posted. And so if you'd like to give feedback to our development team, something about a decision tree for workflows, feel free to post your idea here. And this is what the development team reviews when they are building out their roadmaps for the changes and improvements we'll be making to Redtail.
Adam asks, do you do all your own due diligence on the safety of the tools like Zapier or Scheduler? Yeah, to the extent that we can. We're never getting any PII through that information, so we're never asking personal identifying information, so we're never asking for socials, date of births, anything like that through a third-party integration software like that. If we did, we would certainly want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence on the security and the integrity of the data solution that we're using. How long did it take to set up all the workflows? A long time. Workflows are simple. What's that?
I said they're years in the making, right, Adam?
They are. They're a decade in the making. I mean, I shouldn't say a decade in the making. We have largely smoothed out all the workflows. What I will say is, and again, we have a solution offering. If you're interested in learning more, you can head to integratedcas.com for more information there. What you're buying in any solution, again, we're not the only ones that do this, is time, because workflows are fairly simple and easy, but they are time consuming to build. I will say the one area, if you're going to build these on your own, the one area that you really are going to have to do some heavy thinking and just what if planning is the outcomes. Spend time on the if then scenario. And again, like I said earlier, that gets amplified when you insert client involvement or when client action is involved in the next action of the workflow. Like, need to change beneficiary forms. How are you sending those out? Document or DocuSign or mail? How are you tracking the return of that? What happens if a client needs to make a modification to those documents after you've sent them out? How do you, like, all of those different things, the outcomes are, out of everything in workflows, the biggest time suck. Not to scare you away from doing workflows. Please do them. They are beneficial. And it's an investment in your firm's longevity. It is a standard operating procedure or system. It also helps from a valuation standpoint and from an enterprise value because it removes you from having to drive the bus. So for those of you that are later in your career thinking about how do I exit from this business and how do I insulate myself against company risk, having your institutionalized and standard operating procedure in place is a way to delever that business risk. But yeah, it takes a while. Share some of the UDFs that you use for clients. Ooh, that's a good one. Let me see. Some of ours, I'm trying to think of a way to quickly do this without sharing. Let me try and hunt it up here, log into our other database and see if I can pull up our UDF field without giving away any client information, which I think we'll be able to do. We use a lot, candidly, some of our UDFs are very specific. For example, we ask for payroll information, payroll frequency, because we help with practice owners and their 401ks and things like that. So part of it is very specific. I don't know how beneficial it'll be, but I'll pull that up here as we're going. Question for Austin, any way to have an automation based on a change in category rather than a change in status?
Not at this time, unfortunately. Things that can trigger automations based off of a change is obviously the status, as mentioned. Also updating things like phone number, address, email address could also trigger automations, but not the category at this time. But however, that is a wonderful point of feedback. I'd love if you would post it here onto the help desk forum.
Does this link up with our calendar and email? We use Mac computers. So no. We haven't used Redtail Calendar in the better part of 6 years. Everything that we do from a calendaring standpoint is done through Acuity, which does have a deep integration with Outlook, or with whether you're using Google Calendars, Outlook, Apple Calendar, iCal, whatever it is. We're on Macs as well, and we work our to-do list from Redtail, period, full stop. We don't use a to-do list in Outlook or anything else that feeds in from Redtail. Redtail is our to-do list simply because of the functionality. Again, being able to use that workflow task report. If we only we want to only make sure, hey, if there's a top-notch thing that we want to get done, we want to search for all workflows that have the category cashiering, because that means that money is coming in or out of someone's account. So we'll pull a workflow task report equal to category cashiering to make sure that out of everything that we're doing, clients getting or receiving, either sending us money or us sending them money is top of mind. So there wouldn't be a way to pull that if it was feeding into Outlook. So functionality is more important for us than integration there. Hopefully that answers your question, Marcus. Do you know what information Redtail API is sending out to the tech partners? It is my understanding that Redtail API sends out all information and is up to the contra vendor to pull what they need. I believe this is a big security flaw.
Sure, I can help with that, Adam. So Robert, I would ask if you could maybe reach out to our compliance team. You can email them at compliance@redtailtechnology.com. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to kind of explain our philosophy as far as information that we do or do not share. The other thing that you can do as well is we do have our security statement and our privacy policy publicly posted to our website. So if you head to redtailtechnology.com, scroll all the way to the very bottom of the page, and I do mean the very bottom of the page, there is a link there that's for our privacy policy and our security statement to kind of explain sort of how and what we can and cannot do with your data. And so again, you can check that out, but please reach out to our compliance team. They'd be happy to summarize the information on that that privacy policy, because I know it can be quite lengthy, and explain sort of our process as far as integrations.
Thank you, Austin. Anonymous, would you be willing to share with us your workflows? Yes, I will share with you in exchange for a check. Not to be too snarky or anything like that. If you're interested in learning more about that, it is this website. This is the firm, or this is the side. I gave them away, candidly. I gave them away back in 2015. Had a number of advisors that came up and said, holy cow, this is awesome. Thank you so much. And then one of them said, dude, you should charge for this. I'm like, I think I might. And this business was formed. So again, I'm not going to spend time here. I want to get to questions. You can learn more about our offerings that we have there. Do you use this accountability for staff? Oh, yes, we do, Marcus. This is the managerial side of things. So for me as a firm owner and as kind of managing capacity, utilizing that workflow task report is a great way for me to see one of two things that's happening. Either A, finding capacity of the team, and then being able to determine where's the firm at capacity workload wise, or the other thing that can happen, which again isn't as good, or I should say it's not the same type of feeling, but it's equally as important. If I get in there and I pull a workflow task report and I see that there's a lot of outstanding tasks, and I have a conversation with the team member and I'm like, what's happening here? Are you overloaded? How come things aren't getting done here? Oh no, those are all done. I just need to get all this. Like, okay, standard operating procedure. If it's not in Redtail, it didn't happen. So there's a training moment there to make sure, because short of that, I have no other way to gauge capacity of the team. So this is a great managerial tool and capacity tool to build in accountability, and it's full transparency. This is where I can't segment out my workflows and say, this is not do what I say, not what I do. I'm accountable to it as well. So at any given time, my team can pull my workflow task report and see, am I candidly drinking my own Kool-Aid? So it brings accountability to everybody on the team. Let's see. Last question here, do you use anything like Team Slack at all? Adam, yes, we do, but with very rigid guidelines. It is one-off pings here and there. My biggest pet peeve with Slack is it's email with a different name. Or I should say, in the absence of rules and guidelines around it, it's just email with a different name. If you have a firm Slack channel, that's the equivalent of the reply all. If you have individual messages, that's just like sending an interoffice email. So we use them, but very sparingly, and we have guidance and rules around what goes in there and when you can. Short answer is, if it falls under the important but not urgent, we use Asana for anything that is working on the practice. And we have a 3M board, a Monday morning meeting board, where we all will put things that we want to discuss in our level 10 meeting on Monday mornings. So the last thing that goes in Slack is something that is not urgent, but it is important. I won't even pay attention to it. Get it in the right place so that we can discuss it at the right time.
Tap on today. Thank you so much for your time. I know your time is very valuable. Just ask any optometrist. And we really appreciate you showing us what workflows really can become. It's really awesome to see like the upper bounds of what we can really do with workflows and integrating with different tools. I love the text expander recommendation as well. So thanks again for all of your time. I'm sure everybody on the call here appreciated it. And we'd love to have you back in the future. Again, as a reminder, today's presentation was recorded. It's going to be posted to both the Redtail Help Desk and the Redtail YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and replay anything, check out either of those two places next week. Thanks, everyone.
Very good. Austin, thanks for having me. I appreciate everybody being here. Hopefully it was a good return on your time as well.
Thanks, Adam. See ya.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.